Hey, Apollo, you talked to Tina. Um, as I told you a day or two ago, I felt bad. I missed her phone call, like Saturday night or something. But can you maybe explain what's going on? We had Peter on last night. We didn't know much yet. You probably know a lot more, and you gave a great um, explanation this morning on War Room.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and thanks for having me on. There's a lot going on with this situation, to be honest. On one hand, I think it's a little bit much ado about nothing because it's been blown up into a narrative, really, for them to make Tina into some violent offender. But the fact of the matter is, we had no idea what was going on until the following day. And we actually would not have been able to have any idea for probably the next 2 or 3 days had the public and supporters of Tina been so persistent in bothering La Vista for quite some time now. So essentially, yesterday morning, she said, "Hey, I want to make a phone call," and they were like, "No, you're in solitary that they don't call solitary," and because they like to play word games, they don't have it, but yet she's in it. But she said basically, "Listen, you know how this goes. My team knows that if they don't hear from me at least once during the day, that something's wrong, and they're going to start, knocking on doors. So, they do understand that is in fact reality." So she was allowed to call us for a few minutes, and basically all she told us, with a very short amount of time she was allowed to make a phone call to one of us, was, "I'm in solitary. I was assaulted last night. I was filling up exactly as you saw in the video, a swamp cooler in the closet. This woman comes up to me and she got really agitated. She punches at me inside of the closet, and so I put my arm up to shield myself. I had to push her out because she was aggressing on me, and then the camera view just caught me pushing her out of the closet. So they threw me in solitary. Several officers came, shackled me, brought me over there, and they told her that she was being charged. So that was all we knew, and we weren't expecting to hear from her at all for a few more days. Her attorneys put in requests for all the information regarding statements from the other inmate, photos documenting injuries, any written reports, video footage, audio, body cams, etc. And they also asked for a video visitation with her to, document how she's doing physically and things like that. That was denied until this morning. So this morning I was actually able to get on the phone call with her and walk through the video step by step. Now, I was actually surprised as well because far before her attorneys had received anything, and still, to my knowledge, haven't received anything in terms of the report, 9 News had somehow gotten a hold of this footage, and they had had time in under 12 hours since, the statement was put out publicly on Tina's account that they could pull the footage, redact the footage of the other inmates, and then hand it over to Kyle Clark, which I thought was amusing, to say the least. We still haven't received anything, as far as I'm aware, as of a few hours ago. But I believe he did put it in a request, and then they apparently super expedited his open records request, just for the lovely man that he is. And really, what I think happened is because we had a statement out, because Tina said, "Listen, you know what's going to happen if I'm not allowed to talk to my team." They made the decision because there was a ton of attention on this. Mm-hmm. As always happens with things regarding Tina, especially not knowing if she had other things going on, and given the fact that she was told she was going to be charged. So we were working with very little information. I was very careful to put exactly what she told us and be as as restrained as I could, but still get out what her account was. And I think personally what they did is they used the opportunity to then put out a statement from the BOP saying that no, nobody's being charged, despite her being told that explicitly. And then they turned it around, and they knew they had that, that angle of the footage, which just shows Tina coming out of the closet when you look at it. And so they used it and spun, of course, that Tina Peters is a violent person and she assaulted this individual, and everything she said was untrue. So I was actually kind of confused because the first time I saw it, I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. That's a really bad angle. I can't really see anything that the inmate did inside the closet. It's a short clip, and it's hard to really understand what's going on. When I spoke with Tina, Then I started to understand. And when I slowed down the video, which I did actually made a video, I posted it earlier today on my X account. If you go very, very slowly, you can actually see where the other inmate walks up and then actually strikes Tina twice. And I have pictures. Tina does have bruises on her arms. She's not seriously injured, so thank God. But apparently this inmate came up and just got immediately irritated and said, "You disrespected me," and started going off. And Tina didn't really know what she was talking about. She said, "Okay, I'm sure it's not a big deal. You know, do you need to get in here? I can move the cooler." And then you can see in the video where the inmate pushes off and throws a front jab at her. And then there's another one. And then by the time Tina comes out, she's already grabbed onto the other inmate's right hand. And then you see her push her back. They talk for a few seconds. Tina disengages and then walks away. Apparently, Tina told us also earlier today that when she was pushing this girl out to stop her from hitting her while she was in that closet, he was also saying, "You do know you're on camera." So, you know, I don't really know which way it goes. Was this somebody who was prompted by somebody who wanted to get a nice soundbite on the heels of this very publicly damning appeal hearing in terms of her prosecution? They wanted to get a nice little bite of Tina having an incident, or it was just some chick in the prison who has a problem. I believe it's possible she might have had other incidents with Tina, but I haven't confirmed that yet. So I'll update you when I find that out. And, you know, they used the opportunity to make it a big deal. But either way, Tina's not an aggressor. She's never been violent towards anybody. She's had multiple incidents of people offending, pushing her, putting hands on her, threatening to stab her, to kill her. And she's handled, I think, all things considered, everything very well over the last, now 15 months that she's been in prison. And so this is really not a big deal and fairly routine little scuffle that they decided to blow up. And it's an unfortunate camera angle, I'll admit, but if you actually look at the footage and, at a slower speed, it's pretty obvious what happened if you understand the account of Tina's perspective.
And that's on your X account, Apollo?
Correct, yes.
That's what I was gonna ask you. I had Peter on last night, and again, it was early information, as we used to say in the military, right? Early information is never as good as it seems or as bad as it seems. It's just you got to refine it, curate that. And I was asking Peter. I said, was there a history with this woman, with Tina, or did the woman come out of the blue? Because I'm watching the video when you were on Bannon this morning. You see Tina brings that swamp cooler into the closet. That woman goes past her and is another hallway, then purposely seems to come back and engages Tina. And that's why I was like, why did this woman come back and engage Tina? Because Tina was she was nowhere near this woman. And this woman just kind of goes off and goes into Tina in the closet.
Yeah, so I suspect, I have not confirmed this, that there is a record of some other incidents or at least some kind of, odd behavior with this particular inmate, but I have not confirmed who it is yet. So I'm not going to say anything on that until I have. But to me, it's hard without audio. So I'm hoping that in some of the information that they receive back eventually from the Department of Corrections, that there's some audio, because I think that will make the situation a lot clearer. But I don't see what the other inmate was coming over to talk to Tina about with a spray bottle. And again, it was hard for me to understand what was happening. But when you slow it down, you see that pop when she first goes in there. It's pretty clear. And then Tina just restrains her arm, pushes her out of the closet. They kind of rock back and forth a few seconds, and it's over. Tina never strikes her. She never does anything to injure her. And I don't know why they would even say to her without any more information that they're going to charge her with an assault charge. It's silly to me.
It's silly. And the things we were hearing, and Warren and I were kind of asking Peter, and I was talking to Juan. Juan is, as you can see, he's driving here, and I said, if you were to ask Bannon or Navarro, people who've been guests of a prison system, they know typically when there's a kerfuffle between certainly two people, both go into the hole, both go into the shoe, both go into solitary until they figure it out, right? That's just kind of normal procedure. At least that's what I'm understanding. And number two, one, why didn't that happen? And then we heard, and maybe you can confirm this, is that Tina goes into the hole that night, but this other party does not go into solitary.
That is, as far as I'm aware, yes, that is correct. Now, maybe the documentation from La Vista will show that she was moved somewhere, but as far as Tina's aware, and as far as we're aware, the other inmates spent her night in a normal cell. Tina was moved to not solitary. And and I'll add that there have been other incidents where, some kind of altercation happens. And I believe Tina has been moved once or twice to solitary, not being the aggressor herself. And, yet we have this situation where it's immediately turned into an investigation into Tina and then turned into a media circus, as it always is. But, I kind of debated putting anything out. With the 24-hour rule usually applies, but
yeah.
Without knowing what was going
on Bannon this morning, in that you had the hearing and you had the justices on that appellate court, I think, kind of seeing through the noise to the signal of what the hell happened to Tina. You see the governor there in Colorado saying, "Hey, I think it was a harsh sentence," and then I don't know. To me, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but sometimes I don't believe in coincidences. That all of a sudden, this pops up right out of all this good news, right, with Polish and the justices. Now it's like, were they? My first thought was, were they trying to set her up, to provoke her, to instigate her, to do something so they can keep her in there?
Well, I think, I'll call it a 50-50 just for my skeptical nature. It's not unusual that things like this do happen. They have many tricks in these systems, and especially with people who have been in there a long time. So it's very possible that maybe she was promised some, extra privileges. Maybe she was given some commissary money. I don't know. She very well could have been said by some, worker at the facility, some prison official, "Hey, it would be really cool if you got in a fight with Tina, and we'll give you whatever." And that's not hard to do, and it's certainly not unheard of. So did that happen? I'm not sure at this point. If some of the information from the facility comes back that might indicate that, we could have a bit of an answer there. Either way, I think it's a relatively minor, but another example of Tina being treated unfairly, as you said, on the heels of what the public, and I think the judges particularly, made very clear, is that there were some serious problems with her prosecution and the fact that she was convicted the way she was and sentenced. And of course, all those things lending to the fact that she's still in prison 15 months later, pending appeal. So all this is very, very connected. And personally, I think the only thing, given what happened in that appellate hearing last week, if they come out with any sensical decision based on what I saw and what I heard and what I know of her case, I don't see very many paths where she wouldn't have to be released, at least until the rest of it is able to be played out. And the only way they can avoid that is with something like this, to claim that now she's being investigated for a violent offense while she's in prison. And they get to avoid a little bit of the victim narrative that she rightfully deserves, so that if she is let out, that she's not the poor Tina Peters who was wrongfully imprisoned, which she was, maliciously prosecuted, which she was, and denied bond and, made to sit in prison with a bunch of violent offenders that she doesn't belong with for 15 months. So all of it's very much related, and I just hope that Tina's safe and that we get some answers.
Yeah. Warren, I get you, you're muted, I think.
I was just going to say, looks like we just lost Juan again. He must be in some rough territory there.
He's in mountainous area right now. That I know for a fact. And I was going to ask you, Apollo, those of us who know Tina, she's not, as we said, first off, if you ever see her in person, she's a petite woman, and she's, as you said, you visited her. She's even more thin than she normally is, and she's a cancer survivor. She's not a big person. And this is not the first time she suffered attacks or abuse in the system, which she had been letting people know. So It's like, La Vista, you have a known situation and you're letting it fester.
Well, a couple things. First of all, Tina she's very thin. She is sick. Even when we saw her a few days ago, she has a horrible cough. We had the privilege of seeing her most of the day over the course of a few visits. And I mean, she was in good spirits. She's a fighter. And, as you see in the video, I mean, she won't back down. That's certainly not who Tina Peters is, but she's not an aggressor at all. There have been multiple incidents. She's extremely reserved and she's very logical, and she's been dealing with a lot. And she's felt very unsafe for a lot of reasons. I think on the heels of that appellate hearing, Jared Polis coming out and saying that he thinks the decision was too harsh regarding her sentencing. As I said earlier, again, yes, if you have a pulse and an IQ over 50, you could have determined that yourself. And I don't think it's an accident because, Mr. Colorado has 2026 ambitions for, he has presidential ambitions for the next administration. And I think he has some calculus as to how am I going to look for a presidential run in terms of my leniency to the public. And also given some very real things that are, I believe, coming down the pike for Jenna Griswold and Bill Weiser, how do I distance myself from that whole mess enough that I can stand on my own two legs? And especially after that hearing, I think he has to make a decision. Do I keep this tough on crime, story up within the state that has been fighting the federal administration on, sanctuary cities and illegals and fighting with ICE? Or, do I all of a sudden decide that I'm going to have a justice-oriented strike of mercy? So I think that's what's going through Mr. Polis's head.
Especially Warren, on the heels, and Paul's going to ask you this, is, the FBI just delivered subpoenas to Waltz, to the AG Ellison up there in Minnesota, and to Mayor Fry. I'm just hearing, I'm not in the loop on anything, but I'm hearing subpoenas might not be too far off for Jenna Griswold and your AG up there in Colorado, Apollo.
Well, I certainly hope not. I would say, in my own estimation, there's plenty of reason for that. I would be shocked if they didn't have some idea what would be coming for them. But you had the Department of Justice, you had Harmeet Dillon, put Jenna Griswold on notice just not too long ago regarding, ironically, 20701 failure to turn over records and to provide them, because apparently they didn't need to hold them anymore. So, I mean, again, very much in the same vein of, at least publicly, why Tina Peters was persecuted so hard. So I think that, in conjunction with Space Force and all kinds of examples of federal funding that Trump has been yanking away from the state of Colorado, they are feeling the pressure. And, I think they're all on notice. So this Tina Peters case is probably got goosebumps running through the leadership here in Colorado, and for very good reason.
Amen. Amen. A lot of stuff going down. A lot of stuff fixing to go down. I would say, hey, Juan, are you there? You seem like you have a little hard time, brother.
Well, I in the mountains, I would have pulled over if we had not had Apollo on, but I just wanted to listen to Apollo and keep putting miles under my belt. The one question I have is, will this person be charged with assault on Tina? We've had numerous incidents where people have been harassing Tina, but nobody else is getting charged, even Tina being the one put in solitary. At the very least, both of them, as Matt said, should have gone.
That's the beauty.
There's not an even-handedness. Yeah, they're just not being even-handed with Tina.
No, they're absolutely not. I would hope that, of course, this all depends on the investigation or whatever information is turned over from La Vista. But I'll just remind everyone, this is already on record. This is in direct emails to Tina's attorneys. It's been brought up multiple times that Tina has had to deal with a lot of these incidents, and she has applied to the honor pod multiple times and been denied. Now, months ago, they had stated it's in their records that Tina was denied for admission in honor pod because she has 4 violations. She has 4 write-ups. And her attorney subsequently went through the Department of Corrections, requested whatever write-ups were, assigned to Tina and what those might be that had prevented her from being admitted, and direct quote from the, records archivist, whatever, at the Department of Corrections, Tina Peters has no write-ups at La Vista. And so, I mean, they're already on record as lying. Will they decide to do the right thing? Probably not, because, they have enough problems going on in La Vista, not even at this point touching on the civil rights investigation into the Colorado Department of Corrections. And that involves things that Tina has turned over as well. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. I hope that they're being looked at with some urgency and in the interest of not just Tina, but also the other inmates in La Vista and other facilities in Colorado who have to deal with this nonsense. So again, I think they're going to try to cover themselves and save their own skin because they have a lot of heat on them, and frankly, it's their own doing.
It's their own doing. And I thought it was fortuitous, Apollo, that when you were waiting to come on, or I think you might have been on and they broke away and you came back on, out here at SHOT Show, Ben Berkwam had Todd Blanche, and Blanche was on there, and he mentioned, he talked about about Miss Peters, because he probably, I've been on Bannon's show a couple of times where you're in the background. Sometimes you can see what the other guests are saying and so forth. And I just thought maybe it was fortuitous that Todd Blanche heard that. And to be honest, I didn't know his history. That history of Todd's is at least for me, puts him in a different light. Now, I know there's issues that folks have voiced, both as inside the DOJ, outside the DOJ, evidently. But I found it encouraging, or a God thing, that he was listening to you on Bannon's War Room.
Well, I was happy. I'm sure Mr. Blanche is busy, and I wish him the best. Of course, there have been a lot of people who've been echoing frustrations that, for instance, it's his fault that Tina's still in prison. I mean, that's one line. I don't know that it's true. I certainly don't know that I can look at the picture and say that confidently, but I can't imagine all the things that the Department of Justice is having to deal with, especially coming on the heels of the previous administration and with a very active civil war and the federal coup that is going on in the nation, and all kinds of things affecting national security that I certainly don't know of without a security clearance. And I'm just so grateful that we have good people who are protecting the nation. So as much as it hurts me to see what Tina is going through and how long it's taking, I'm also willing to, to bite the bullet a little bit and say, okay, well, if we want good people to really do things right, the investigations take time, and I might be frustrated, but ultimately I don't know what the reasons are, and I'm willing to leave it up to God and believe that even if there are some stoppers somewhere, there are good people who are in this country, who are in the federal government, and who are looking at these issues. And we like to focus on all the negatives, and there's a lot of people who like to criticize. And even me, when I look at Tina's case and others, it's easy to armchair quarterback. I like to think I'm a brilliant attorney who plays one on TV, but when I talk about Tina's case, but unless you're in the arena, it's a very different experience. I think people can see that from Donald Trump. Tina's a great example as well. And of course, you all doing all the things that you do in the background. People have a lot of opinions, but when they don't see what's actually going on in between plays, it's a very different experience. So I just am grateful that he got to hear it. Maybe it'll make him have a conversation. But I'm just happy that Tina is still on everyone's mind, and that our country is still peaceful, because we could be in a lot worse position in terms of violence on the streets and so many other things. So God is great.
Amen.
Hey, let me just dive in for 1 second. First off, Apollo, I hope that you will plan to stay engaged even after this drama with Tina runs its course and she's back in her home and able to function on her own outside the prison. The reason I say that is because you've got a great mind, and just as Matt was pointing out, your interviews have really just sharpened up tremendously over this last couple of years. And the stuff he did on Bannon today, just super well done. But let me ask you this, you know, I don't think that Tina, and I talked with her, you know, the evening after she presented at the Lindell event, and we anticipated lots of the drama even then. But who could have imagined, you just spoke with Tina, do you think even yourself, let alone Tina, ever imagined that this would go the distance the way it is right now, where Tina would be such a crucial player, just as the frauds within the paper and machine votes are coming to a head, as President Trump is pointing out across the country? I felt she would be very important, but I don't know that anyone could have anticipated just how pivotal what she has and her role is in this big picture. Do you feel the weight of that yourself, having been there from the beginning somewhat?
Yeah, I mean, it's been you know, back since 2020, 2021, and I knew Tina then, and I saw her at events, and now I kind of take for granted because there's so many people. Tina has, in many ways, rightfully so, become this icon and this pivotal figure when it comes to elections, you know, particularly. But now with some of the other developments in her cases, also on constitutional issues of weaponized government, issues of, you know, violations of the Eighth Amendment specifically, and weaponized bail, malicious prosecutions, and now, you know, like she needed another badge, civil rights and prison reform. It looks like. I mean, she's just become this titan without really ever wanting to be one, just by showing up and being willing to take the punches and hanging in there and being a true spirit. And I take it for granted because I used to produce her show and I'd see her every day. She'd come in and we record and we joke around and, you know, we go out to her property. And she's just my Tina, you know, she's like my adopted grandmother. And I'm sure it's the same for people in high positions like Tom Homan or, you know, or President Trump or someone's father. But I think it's really one of the greatest examples when you think about why she did what she did. Why did she run for the clerk? She was pissed off because the DMV has 3-hour waits in Mesa County. That's why she ran. Yep. And then she stepped into a giant RICO operation. So I think Tina Peters' story is such a perfect example of how important every single one of us is, and how large a mission, how, you know, immense a task we can perform for the nation and for, you know, for each other when we just show up. You know, it's not some mythical figure. It's just Tina Peters. She's a lung cancer survivor, Gold Star mother, and she was my friend. I produced her show, and, you know, now we just want her to have justice done. But I think really that what everyone needs to understand when they look at this situation and all the other things that are so interconnected but so massive is someone like Tina can be you tomorrow. When it goes for the ways that she's been attacked, that's every single one of you. I could be the next Tina Peters. You could be the next Tina Peters. What they can do to her, just like what they can do to President Trump, it's you tomorrow if you don't stand up and do something about it and refuse to let that become normal and accepted. And so this war of precedent is, you know, I think one of the next great hurdles that the American people are going to have to really wrap their head around. And I'm just grateful that we're all still able to witness it.
You know, Paul, if I could, I remember talking to her here. I think she was actually at an event in Vegas, and I was talking with her, and she reiterated. She goes, you know, I was an election, you know, what I was doing, part of the job was election clerk, and I thought my system was right? It was perfect until her constituents said something's not right, and they pleaded with her to look into it. So being a good public servant, she goes, I'll do that. If there's a there, I'll find it. She thought that everything was honky-dory with her system. So I wanted to say that's the first thing. She wasn't some zealot on attacking a windmill. She thought the system was perfectly fine until she decided to start looking. And critical thinking, which General Holt always says, critical thinking, engage in critical thinking. And number two, how many times in people's lives did you sacrifice your principles for expediency for one easier on you, right? Tina didn't do that. She did not sacrifice her principles.
No, no, and she never will. Even when she's in there, we've talked a lot, and you've heard, I'm sure, many times how she's in there and she's getting drugged through the media and another court hearing and another this and another, motion dismissed and another 3 months. And she sits in there and half the conversations are her talking about how bad she feels about these other inmates. And most recently, it's been about all the injustices that she has seen within the prison system. And it weighs on her heart, despite everything that she's going through, that there are so many women in here, they don't have families, they don't have connections to the outside world, they have no concept of what it means to be respected and to have anything in their life. And she sees that on top of how they're treated in many cases in there, and it breaks her heart. And that's just the kind of person that Tina is.
Warren, it makes you feel honored to call her a friend, because she is, the nation knows her as an icon, I think, Tina Peters, but Apollo, certainly you more than I, but those of us who know her as a friend, I know Juan and Jen had her at their place on the Big Island to kind of relax and recuperate. We had a person here. She has a wonderful home here. When Laura Logan's here, she stays there. Laura Logan loves Cheryl, and this person said, hey, if she wants, when she gets out, she's more than welcome to come here. And Tina knows the place we're talking about, this beautiful home that's just immaculate and welcoming and wonderful. Anyway, so many people are saying when you're out and when you are ready, I know Juan and Jen want to pamper her, take care of her. Everybody wants to help her, certainly, and just let her know that she's loved.
No, I certainly will. And just on that point, there have been, Laura and you and so many others that, we've talked about. Juan have offered her support in a lot of ways, including, a place to stay. And she's so grateful. And I think she actually might have mentioned one of the places you were just talking about to me a couple times. But, Tina, she's in there right now. And yes, she's tired and she wants to be out. And she's sick of all this nonsense and being in prison and everything that goes on in there. But truly, she feels like she's being prevented from helping, because that's the first thing in her mind is, I want to get out and I want to help the country, and I want to make sure that the elections are solid, and I want to do something. And she's said repeatedly, when I had lung cancer, I said, God, don't let me go until I've done my job. And she said, I didn't go, so I know I still have work to do. And that's every day. That's how Tina Peters is. No matter how, frustrating and how hard her days are, she wants to help the American people, and she wants to do her job. She wants to earn that, well done, my kid, when she's done
here. She's tough. Makes me want to do better. You know what I mean? Makes me want to do better at everything I do.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Me too. She inspires me.
Yes. Mom, are you going to say something?
Well, just that, she's staying the course and she hasn't quit. That is a touchstone for all of us. We all have to consider, if Tina can do it, I hear people from time to time, I'm done, it's over with, I can't take it anymore, and things like that. But they have the luxury of changing channels, doing something else, stepping away. Tina doesn't. And, so the inverse of that is, if Tina can do it, we can do it. And even if it takes longer than we ever hoped or dreamed or would have thought was necessary, for whatever reasons that the president is holding on his next drastic action, as he said he was going to do, and I believe fully that he is going to end up doing, weighing everything out as he has, I trust his judgment, and I trust what he said, that he is, got Tina's concern there. He's thinking about it all the time. He sends the stuff out on Truth Social to make sure everybody knows that he isn't dropping his guard, that he's very aware of her situation, that it's on his mind. And yet he's holding for reasons that may later be very obvious and apparent. This whole election thing is global. Even, Matt, what you and I had to deal with last year, where we were looking at the paper ballot situation and stuff coming in from outside the country. This is more than just even the machines. And you're seeing stuff now playing out there in Nevada, Hawaii, Pennsylvania. It's stunning all across the country. The Midwest is on fire, understanding new information about the stolen vote stuff. And at the core of all of that, really, Tina stands out in an iconic way because, who else went the distance that she did to document the internals on those machines? It is stunning.
It is, and Apollo, I think a testament to. We had a brief. Juan was there, Patrick Byrne was there, Mark Cook, Professor Clements, Garland Favorito. This was January of last year. By the way, I'll give you the address and location, and I know I told Marcy and so forth if Tina's out, come to this location. It's by Dulles Airport, beautiful home, but it's where we first met people and got debriefed on what Venezuela was doing, and then the subsequent briefs, that they said here, by the way, we had briefed Elon Musk and so forth, and all of these people, by the way, doing this presentation went about 2 hours. It wasn't the 6-hour one they wanted to give Elon. It was 2 hours, and they said, what Tina Peters did provided the Rosetta Stone for us to be able to crack this code. Tina Peters provided her actions were the Rosetta Stone.
Yep. That's fact. That's fact, folks.
Well, and I do think it's a bit funny because Tina Peters providing the Rosetta Stone, it really shows you, and I think it's a good comparison to what we saw during COVID. So many, strong men and big personalities, and when the pressure's really on and you have the full weight of the psychological apparatus against you and everyone is going along with it, you see a lot of people fold really quickly. And you look at the clerks. I mean, this applies to so many states, what Jocelyn Benslin and the witches in Michigan did, and other places. Tina Peters just made sure that she was actually preserving what she was supposed to. That's why she did what she did. And it, obviously landed in a bunch of trouble, but how many other clerks do we have in this country? There was one in Dallas, Schroeder in Elbert County, who also performed a backup. He turned it over to the Secretary of State, and they, of course, made a big performative out of that as well because of what Tina had done. He turned it over, and there was no Rosetta Stone there because now Jenna Griswold had it after that. But how many other clerks do we have? And there aren't so many images, and there aren't so many Rosetta Stones, and I think that's a real shame. I'm sure there are some floating around, but none who have been on record as standing up so vocally and so boldly and not backing down on the fact that I was trying to protect the American people. I was elected. I was not working for Jenna Griswold. I was elected and working for the people of Mesa County. And upon my own constituents telling me that there were problems, I looked into it, and subsequently Tina is where she is. But it's in times like this where what you would think are ordinary things become really extraordinary acts of courage and conviction, and Tina exemplifies that.
Apollo, she does, and just on some stuff I whistle blew on. People who weren't elected, they were federal government officers, and they were cowards, a lot of them, and because I got a pension, I have a family, I can appreciate what they're saying, but when you see gross illegal things occurring, I don't know, like running weapons into Mexico, the murder of Bortec agent Brian Terry, and you know the truth, and you shut up or you stifle because I have a job, I have a pension, I have a wife, I have kids. How, as Juan says, all of us eventually have to lose this earth suit and go back to the kingdom we're all originally from, right? We're ambassadors to this planet from that kingdom. and you might be saved. You can believe in Christ, but you still got to account for what you did and didn't do, even if you're saved. And shame on people, and hooray for people like Tina who do the right thing, even when nobody's looking.
Amen. And Apollo, thank you for being that friend close to her that supports her. And, wow, she needs tons of those. And I think she's got a lot, but it's probably in there. It's probably hard to see, Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Well, there's a lot of people who have supported Tina in a lot of ways.
Yes, sir.
And it goes both ways. When you're inside when you see inside baseball, you see a lot of amazing acts of kindness, and you see a lot of really genuine people like yourselves, and you also see a lot of not so genuine people. And you see a lot of very selfish, a lot of opportunistic, and a lot of just outright cruel and unusual punishment and very underhanded behavior that really makes you shake your head. But all of us will have to face that, and I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I have seen a lot of the results of that. We all make mistakes, and when I look at someone like Tina, I look at her, and everyone is someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone's sister, brother. And, we've seen, especially over the last few years, so many mimetic ideas going around. And if you just think of the idea of an angel or a demon, I think we all get the opportunity to be one of those. And at any given moment, we can choose which one we're going to be for whoever it is that we have the opportunity to share that moment with. And so even when I'm really pissed off, and man, do I have my moments,
right.
And I can be petty, and I can be all kinds of things, as we all can. I just think, how am I going to be an influence in this person's life? And it's people like Tina, and it's people who have been those who mentored me back, that remind me that, even the worst offenders were at one point a small little scared child. And so we have grace, but we pursue accountability. And I just try to remember that, if not for people like Tina, there wouldn't be a need for people like me. If not for people like me, maybe someone else would choose to be a demon if I were not that, version of myself who chose what I wanted to be for them. And that's just, I think, from moment to moment, if we all take responsibility for what we choose to create, I think our country will be in a very good place in a few years.
Thank you for such a great explanation of your thoughts. We appreciate it, what you're doing. Matt, y'all carry on. I've got a meeting that I've got to get to, and if both of you can just turn that off, and I'll be listening in the back. Okay. Thanks so much.
Yeah, we'll make sure we exit out when we're done here.
Whatever you do, I'll take care of it if not.
All right, Warren. Thank you, Warren.
Thank you. Thank you, Apollo. Thank you, Juan.
Thank you, Juan. I was going to share Apollo's story that Juan was at. We were in the same house that I want to give you the address to. Please come. We're going to have kind of an election integrity or election reform reunion, right? Patrick's going to pay for he said, I'll pay for all the catering, right? And this home we were in, wonderful lady's home, wonderful lady, and her husband, beautiful people. And that evening, for a brief period, Ed Martin stopped by because he lives in that area, and he was we had to go pick up his daughter from soccer practice, so he couldn't stay that long. But I watched the passion, Apollo, he had for Tina, right? And Ed's not telling me to say this, and maybe I'm embarrassing him. I'm sorry, but I just want to recount what happened because it's factual. And when I mentioned that she had just called me from prison, he goes, "You talked to Tina?" I said, "Yes." He goes, here's my card, and here's actually my cell number. Let her know I wanted to speak to her. This was September 4th. And I think that Juan, myself, and others, we were meeting with DOJ and IRS and people briefing ODNI people on that next day, that Friday. But what I was doing, I was like, my God, how do I? First, Ed wants to speak to her, right? Ed wants to speak to Tina, and I'm thinking, how? You can't get her on your list, even he's in DOJ. It's a process. So I remember, I think I texted Marcy and I texted Peter. And I said, hey, maybe if Peter can effect a legal call, Ed can get on it. But I just wanted to share with you and for Tina to know because I know you talk to her frequently. Ed Martin, the passion he had to work to get her out and to do the right thing, it was genuine. And that man is he's a hero. I don't know what's going on in DOJ, a lot of moving parts, but that person had the heart of a lion, Tina.
Well, if you do, I'll relay that most certainly to Tina. But thank Ed, and I've heard a lot of great things about Ed, and I know there are some people who've been fighting very hard, and I know it's not, it's not as simple as playing checkers to get done what we want to get done. I hope that anyone who is listening, who is a part of that, God bless you, and we appreciate you, even if many people don't see what you're doing. So please pass that on if you get an opportunity.
That'd be great. Hey, Juan, as we got about 6 minutes to wrap up, any thoughts? I know you and Jen love Tina dearly.
Well, prayers. Prayer changes things. In the scripture, with the apostles and in the Old Testament with the nation of Israel, it says that God oftentimes hardened the hearts of the jailer, the Pharaoh, but it was for his purposes and before they were released. And there's something within the national psyche and experience, even international, where Tina's situation plays some pivotal role. And so I am frustrated because even as Apollo noted, and others have noted who saw Tina before she went in, she's gone in, and over this period of time, she's become, very frail. In fact, my concern was with this person that attacked her. I mentioned it on a thing I did with Nino yesterday, where a delivery driver attacked a person in a residential area that was, Vietnam vet in his 70s, early 70s, and hit him, and he fell and cracked his skull, and he's in a coma right now. It's unknown if he'll make it or not. Very, very, very sad story. But, you don't have to get hit very hard or the wrong way or pushed, and it's not even the effort that was put into it, but you crack your head on something. Tina's not strong right now, and anything could have happened there. I don't want to be remembering Tina. I want Tina out here to enjoy what's got to be done right now, and she cannot get out too soon for me, and I know for this audience. But at some level, there's a divine hand here, so we need to be, praying this through, I guess, is the only way I can really say it. If you're not praying it through, you're not understanding God himself makes decisions in the affairs of men. That's the Old Testament and New Testament, that he is the decider of fate. And we want to align ourselves with God's purposes. There's something that God needs done. It's beyond Trump. It's beyond the military. It's beyond the public. That is some kind of a hinge point that is necessary. And so I don't look to men for Tina's freedom solely, although we do influence. I think we need to be calling the White House. I think we need to burn the phones up at the White House tomorrow. 10 to 3 is when they take public comment at the switchboard, and press hard that, the president said that if Tina wasn't released, he was going to take drastic action. Now, some of that drastic action may be cutting off some of the flow of funds into Colorado. And there is investigations of a number of key political figures going on there. I think before we're done, we're going to find out that there's a series of bond issues that goes directly to Governor Polis that come from early in his political career even to now. So there's all sorts of things that are coming, but in the course of that, Please, God, get Tina out. Let us enjoy her out here, restore her health, and be here to not just witness, but participate in overturning those who've stolen our leadership from us across the country, who've hijacked and pirated our ship of state, at the state level in Colorado and nationally and even internationally in these stolen elections. Remember, the people that we have here testifying right now concerning the machines have said in their affidavits and in their testimony that they overturned the elections in 71 countries, plus the United States. That's over half the free world has leadership in place that's not the will of the people, by the people, and therefore not for the people, they're for themselves, whoever's puppeteering these people in office. And Tina, when she reaches the other side of the board, she's free. She will be a queen, pawn to queen in this chess game for control of the planet. So God has his, purposes, role, whatever. I'm praying to God, please get her out, keep her intact, keep her viable, give her her health and her beauty moving forward, and the satisfaction. Those warriors, I'm talking to all you guys out there that have fought, women that have been in battle, been in service. There is a satisfaction that only warriors know.